Next up on our gong lessoning is playing with two gongs, because you will end up there. You'll say you just want one or need one, and ultimately you have more gongs than you have space. So today I'm going to do a little demo playing two gongs. This is the 36 Polaris. It's a fully polished nickel silver gong, and the 32 piece drop, which is pretty significant right now because I think everyone needs a little drop of peace in their life. I'll do a video on that one there at some point. I think one of the important things to do when you have two gongs is to have them be different sizes and have a different sound texture and profile, rather than having two gongs that are the same in terms of their sound profile. Is really a waste, because you're missing exponential benefits of having different sounds. There are times when these will sound like they might be the same note, but their character is going to be entirely different. And when you're playing with two or more gongs, it's very important to create space between them. Otherwise, it's just noise. If I start whacking at both of these, you don't know what's going on. It's just sound, and it blends together, and it defeats the purpose of having two different gongs. You might as well just have one. And when you create that space between what this one is doing and what that one is doing, it allows you to hear that. And when you hear the different sound, you're then creating that state of awe. And that state of awe is what brings people to that magical spot where they're fully present and they're there in the moment. And I think that's the idea behind all of this. When you or your clients get to that point where you say, "What's that?" that's when you win. And I chose this one in particular because it's got a very unique sound, and it's constructed in quite a unique way, different than most gongs. And there's another aspect of this that I think is really important. Everything's important. Is what I call your gong fu. And that is your ability to be silent between the instruments. To be aware of your clothing, your footwear, aware of the room, your mallet, and all the extra sounds that are going to distract from the atmosphere you're trying to create. If your shoes squeak, if your sleeves make noise, if you're wearing pants and they make noise, the entry of the next instrument should be seamless. It shouldn't be a surprise. It shouldn't shock the nervous system of those that you're playing for. And I know one of the schools of thought was that you disrupt people and you shake them up and you bring up all of their anxiety and their stuff so they can deal with that. I'm not a fan of that approach. If I'm honest, I think it's dumb shit to do. Personally, I like to keep people in that space between being awake and being asleep. That magic spot where they don't know where their body ends. And you can see playing two gongs, it's very gentle. Occasionally the sounds will come together as one. There's a distinct difference in attack between the two. that some of you out there can only play with one hand. I won't name any names. But you can do it with just one hand. That urge to strike again, wait. It's always a good idea to record yourself and listen back. And one of the first things you'll notice is that you're wanting more space in between attack. It creates a little bit of a tension that just pulls you in and makes you lean into what you're doing, and your participants will feel the same way. Times in your gong fu where you're aware of outside noises. We played in one place that was in the city, and there was always police and fire and rescue, and you couldn't fully hide it, but if you could hear it coming, you could mask it with your playing. So there are definitely times when playing louder is useful and making a lot of noise, because you would rather hear too much gong or bowl than a police siren. And when you have two gongs or more at your disposal, your sound palette grows exponentially. As you learn your gongs, you'll know there's a spot here that may blend with a spot here or on the other gong. You might have a big gong that has a really low tone, which creates a nice foundation for some of the higher or mid-range you want to do. And you may not even notice after a minute that that low tone is there until it fades out to nothing. A sense of rhythm can be very, very helpful. And for some, that might be like walking and chewing gum, but if you play around with it, you will get it. Play with a big cadence of it to build tension. To speed up time, so to speak. And also do the reverse of that, where you start going slower and slower. Instead of every 10 to 1, you might bring it down to 12 to 1 or 15 to 1. And slowly create more and more space between the primary percussive and then the secondary. And using that timing can mask going between two different instruments. Because the mind that's listening is going to entrain to the rhythm. And if you don't break that rhythm going from here to there, the mind stays connected to those sounds. To that point of timing, the journey that you're taking with two gongs or more should change. There's a lot of teaching that has people bring the sound up in a linear fashion and kind of repeat the same thing. You got low, medium, high, crescendo. Crescendo and crescendo. To me, that becomes repetitive and predictive. And one of the beauties of gongs and sound healing is that it's not always predictive. Once the mind starts to recognize patterns and it establishes those, it's going to move on to something else. Never played these two together. It's a nice combination. If you have questions or comments, something that you want to see more of, just drop me a line in the comments or send me a message.